Okay, so we're going to go two flash reports. First one is from June 25th, which seems like ancient history. Already things happen so quickly here. So I guess the tax assessment, I believe this is where we get assessed a certain amount of tax, and then we always go to fight it, and see the process, and then come back to us, and it usually gets reduced. Capital projects, we are still in the middle of local law 11 work. Balconies and roofs on some of the buildings, and just some approved things took place. The approval of replacing window sills is always a change order because it wasn't incorporated into the beginning process. The board always needs to approve that change order. It was approved. The schedule now for the bridging to come down around building 3 is the end of this month. I'm going to skip that part in the flash report and just give you the most current information. And for building 6, there was an issue with building 6. We got a fine. The city has been treating us very unfairly. It's almost no matter what we do, we can't satisfy the DOB, the Department of Buildings. So we had a fine with the sand pipe. It was moved. They said we didn't have a permit to move it. We had to file for the permit. It's just going on and on. They will not allow us to take the bridging down around building 6 until all of the fine and what have you are rectified. We were assessed the fine, we paid it, they came back to us and said, oh no, you have 3 fines. And so they have not treated us very fairly. We're hoping that it will be resolved very shortly and that bridging will come down around building 6. But it's kind of like mean-spirited, and they won't allow us to take it down until this issue is resolved. There's really nothing we can do about it, unfortunately. I do know there's an ongoing survey of the building overhangs, the canopies, see if they need any work or repair. So I think that was put into the works, that process.
John, if I may, the overhang work started today.
Starts today.
They're building 1 and they're working on building 2, and they're going to do all of them. They're clearing off the roof line and they're clearing off the flashing.
Great. We'll try to keep you with the most up-to-date information since these are very old projects. The sidewalk, perimeter sidewalk work was approved, and they actually did some of it. It was an in-house thing, I believe this was.
Yes.
Some of that you see, some of the repair work. It's not the best in the world, but it's done in-house.
This is the concrete sidewalks.
Oh, the concrete sidewalk.
Yeah, concrete sidewalks.
And then the garage repairs. They're in process, I believe.
Right, they're almost finished.
Please.
Sorry, I didn't walk in front of you, but I'd like to walk.
Maybe we can put these first.
Well, why don't we put them over here as a little less.
I think I'm going to defer to Larry on the chimney.
Yeah, I'll defer. I'll take the defer.
We have had a problem with the chimney and the company that has been doing the chimney, and it's been very ongoing, and they have failed to show us to do the work several times, because I think Larry has current information.
So just so you know, the chimney has 2 parts to it. There's an exterior part, that's the fascia. That's what you see, looks bad. The interior part, the flue, is in perfect working order. It's being used every day with function. But they have to make it right. Now, they came up with a plan. They had a solution. They came here a couple months ago, and it was the wrong size piece. This is after they measured. Then they measured it right. They came here to put it in on the 29th of August, and they found out the workers said, we can't do this job this way. It can't be done. They called in the engineer again. Engineer came up with a solution. This work will probably not be completed until next year because we will not shut down the water for them to do the work, the system now, because we do not trust them to do the work on time. But everyone should understand that there is no danger. There is no problem with the functioning of that chimney. It's a cosmetic situation that must be repaired. What you should also remember is that this chimney was selected over what would have been an appropriate chimney, which is the brick chimney, because it's supposed to be done in 60 days. Now, 60 days went to October 13th. From January 1 to October 13th. And we chose it. We chose this chimney. This chimney was shoved down everybody's throat because this was going to be a 60-day chimney. It was only cost $400,000. So we spent $1 million something on this chimney because of the boilers. And you get what you pay for. You want to be penny wise and pound foolish, you get this crap. So it's a functioning piece of crap, but it's not the chimney we should have had. Because we could have done the brick chimney in 3 months. It would have been done. It would have fit in with the decor of this fabulous 50, 60-year-old development. And we would have spent $700-something thousand on it, but it would have been done. And nobody would have complained. So this is what you're living with. You're living with an ugly chimney that's going to have a solution that we're not going to agree to have done until next year, because we will not shut down the system for them to do it this close to heating season. Okay? Russell made that call, and I agreed with that call.
Thank you. We'll take questions later. Upgrade of the porta closets. Not all porta closets are created equal. Some of them have some upgrades, some of them don't. We want to go in and rewire them, put outlets in the porta closets, put switches so you can turn the lights on and off. So that's in the process of being done. I think that's going to be done.
Additional information, 4, 5, and 6 are completed. Building 4 has the whole system done with the new LED bulbs in the sockets. 1, 6, and 4, 5, and 3, 4, 5. So it's 3, 4, 5. So it's 1, 2, 6 are not finished yet. It will be finished in a couple of weeks because it's being done by the handyman. And you'll see the raw pipe, but it'll eventually all be painted to match, so the porta closet will be done.
And if you use the light, please remember to turn it off. It's our electricity that we pay for. If you go and you pass by and you see the light on, turn it off, please. The commercial spaces, we're having a problem with the roofs in the commercial spaces. They have been leaking, and it was our obligation as management to repair them, and that's in the process of being done.
Updated information, John? The roofs have been patched.
Okay, they're done.
Our commercial tenant, the doctor, is thrilled.
Okay.
He does not have water pouring in on him. And we are now going to do a permanent solution to those roofs. We're waiting for a permanent price, but the patching has been successful.
He's so happy he's paying us double rent.
He's going to pay all the rent he owes us, which is better.
The bathroom exhaust, do you have any current information on that?
Well, we found building 1 hallway exhaust has now been adjusted so that you get 135 CFMs out of each end of the hallway. And it was a matter, I don't know how many people remember this, but several years ago, we hired a company to come in and clean the vents. Do you remember this?
Yes.
And I have a good memory. And it seems that when they cleaned the vents, they changed the way the blades were facing. They opened them up. When you open them up, you prevent the exhaust from going all the way to the bottom and being pulled out. It starts to pull out nearer the top floors than from the bottom. So it seems that we may have solved the solution at a very economical way, unless we have as we go along, we may find that the shafts might be clogged. But right now, we think we've solved the solution where these fins that are in your bathroom have to be closed a certain amount. And if we close them down in the hall, that's what we did in the hallway. We were able to pull the full exhaust from the bottom to the top, even, which was kind of amazing, you know. So this is an ongoing thing. We finished the hallway. They're going to do an F line? Yes, an F line. Do you know that the F line is 2 bathrooms? One bathroom is a single exhaust fan line. It's not, everybody else is tied together. Like F is tied to G, or F is tied to the studio, G is tied to H, because they meet at the top. But F is its own line. So the next line that's going to be challenged or taken care of will be the F line to see if the same principle works all the way down. And then that will be transferred to all the F lines. And then we'll work on the other ones. It should be, maybe by the end of the year, beginning of next year, we should have it all done. If we don't hit a snag like the clog line.
So the garbage solution, what had happened back in June, we had been in negotiations with Pet Food because they were using the parking lot. We wanted to take some of the parking lot over to create this garbage solution that we had created temporarily. And we had to negotiate with them about their lease because there was some ambiguities about the lease, and that negotiation took place. It was resolved, and we were able to move forward with the composting and the garbage solution, which is temporary, by the way. This is not the permanent solution. So we have tried to encapsulate all of the garbage into the 2 big bins and close it up so that it will diminish the food supply to the rats. So that's in place. The compost is in place. So that's all happened now. It's done, and we are awaiting a final design from the engineers to really revamp that whole area.
John, anybody here live in building 4?
Yep.
Have you seen rats?
No.
Right. That's the big thing.
Lou told me he comes in at 5 in the morning and he sees no rats.
More importantly, you don't see a rat. That's even better.
I don't go out there.
Because I used to see the rat, I don't know if you know, but if you had cinder blocks there, the rats, you could see their tails sticking out the back. And they love to like sit in there and wait to dine on our fine leftovers.
So there were some issues with electrical charges, which I think have been resolved. It was just a billing glitch.
Right.
As you know, we have moved forward with, there have been changes to parking agreements. Everyone who is parking needs to have a sticker on their car that is visible to public safety. If you don't have a sticker, I think most of them have been taken now, pretty much.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will be towed. If you have a sticker, you have the right to use that spot, nobody else. Hopefully you've all enjoyed the air conditioning in the lobbies this past summer. So that's taken place. Cooper Square, which is now First Residential Service, sends out customer satisfaction reports. So if you have work done in your apartment, they send a survey. They'd like to get your feedback. They've been getting very high marks, so maybe the complainers aren't filling out their surveys. I don't know. So if you're unsatisfied with something, let us know. But hopefully you're satisfied with the work that's being done. Hopefully you're all going to the gym and working out. We have upgraded the equipment in the gym. We're adding 1 or 2 more pieces of equipment. We're constantly keeping the amenity up to date. It is really a terrific gym if you haven't gone into it. So anyway, the rebranding of Cooper Square is First Service Residential. So if you used to sending emails to Russell or Sabina, please note their email addresses are changing. It's not at Cooper Square anymore. It will change to at First Service. I think it'll be forwarded for a while, but you should make note of the new change in the email address.
Yes, every time Russell responds, he tells me,
Yes.
in the email, it says, please know my address is. He wants you to know the new address. It's very important.
The Bylaws Committee made a report that clarified something. There was a few letters to the board, I believe, that were questioning the way maintenance is charged at Morningside Gardens. And every complex is somewhat different. Our complex, our maintenance charges are tied into some system that was incorporated when we first incorporated, I believe.
Yes.
And it is not tied into shares of the apartment. I believe every apartment from the first floor up to the 21st floor has the same shares. So if you were tying maintenance into shares, someone on the first floor would be paying the same amount of maintenance as someone on the 21st floor, which obviously isn't fair because the view on the 21 is considered a better apartment. So our maintenance charges are tied into that system that was incorporated way back when, and it is basically unchangeable. It has been ruled by several lawyers.
IRS ruled that this is the way, that this is a correct way to do it. And co-ops,
Impossible.
and co-ops, we're actually the way a Michelama co-op works, as opposed to a private co-op. We work on, the shares are even, but it's your location and your view determines your cost of your maintenance, that basic maintenance charge. And then, of course, we explain everything. I write that fabulous letter to you in January when you get the $11.99 and says this is how you do it for your tax return.
I hope you are all ready and waiting with bated breath for the new website, which we've been working on. So it's about to launch. It is going to be really terrific. We have totally revamped it. It'll be new photographs, a new design. You will be able to go on the website. If let's say you turn on the water in the morning and there's no water for some reason, you'll be able to go on the website and there'll be a flash report about what's going on. There'll be all of the forms you need. You won't have to call the management office for forms. You can get them online. We're going to try to stop killing all these trees with all these flash reports and board minutes, and you will have the ability to have those delivered to you via email. They will also be posted on the website. I think they'll be posted for 1 year of history. Andrea's been working very hard on pulling that part of it all together. I think it's going to be a pretty terrific tool. It's also going to be a work in progress, so you're going to have to bear with us. We've tried to anticipate as many things as possible. I'm sure we haven't gotten it all correct, but we're hoping to launch that within the next month.
If I may, John, what John has done with his committee is they have created a website that will be maintained by us. It will not cost us $250 every time we want to go in and change a name on the board, which is what this guy, I think, close to the price.
Yes.
It's ridiculous price. So this is going to be a self-maintained, very efficient, very adaptable website that I believe we're all going to be able to use in a very useful way, thanks to John and the committee members.
There'll be community calendars. There'll be a lot of
Book
features.
rooms, you could book rooms, like if you want to reserve the Thurgood Marshall room for a certain day, you can do it online, and if it's already booked, it will show you that. So you don't have to go to the office to reserve a room.
We're trying to come into the 20th century.
Just to pay the fee, right? Just to pay the fee, they have to go to the office.
Yes, it's a fee, yeah. But that's all explained on the website.
Yeah,
It's all explained.
What will happen is you will sign up for your account based upon your maintenance bill. And every household will be able to have as many people on the website as they'd like. So if you have a family of 4, you can all have access to that account. You'll be able to sign up individually. And you'll each get, a husband and wife or domestic partners will each get the flash report to their inbox and stuff like that. So a lot of good features coming. I think everyone saw that the play rules have been adopted and posted, and that came about in the last 2 board meetings. The board has also been made a policy, and it's been going after a lot of our tenants in arrears. Last year, Mindy, who is our accountant, came to the board and said your arrears were starting to approach $1.3 million. That's tenant shareholders in arrears. and that if you didn't start bringing that number down, you would have to bring a line item into the budget to compensate for the shortfall in the money you're getting. And so the board had to take action. A fair amount of those are estates. We have several apartments where people have died with no heirs. They've gone into, the state takes them over. It's very complicated. But now we have directed the lawyers to go after these very actively. And so we've closed one or two. So we've gotten the flip tax and money from that, the back arrears, and we're working aggressively. We're doing 5 of the worst ones at a time, but also Russell is working very hard to bring down the arrears of other shareholders that may be having a problem. There was a film that was shown, Homegrowns, I think.
No, we came on as a sponsor to that at the Apollo. And we got credit in Channel 13 also when they showed it. It's part of our community outreach.
As the scaffolding has come down, the grounds committee has been working very hard to restore some of the trees that have gotten destroyed, some of the plantings that have been done. We've also launched the In Honor Of project, which is you can donate a tree in honor of. Very own Lottie Strauss has in our tree. I think Larry did
My family, one for Glenn Bader was
one for Glenn Bader. So it's been a very successful program that the ground
Judge Carter. Not Judge Carter living here, the father of Judge Carter.
The next one was just an internal transfer to move money from one line of the budget to another. It was kind of a balancing.
The capital part.
Right. 2 motions came up, both failed. One was having to do with composting. It failed. One had to do with air conditioning. It was withdrawn because it was already done by the time the motion came up. And then another one about creating a neighborhood partnership. That also failed. Should I do both together and then take questions?
Yes, I think so. As soon as I can July.
Okay.
Okay, don't stop.
The energy, Cooper First Service has a program that we can tap into where they buy energy for all of their buildings in one full swoop, and supposedly we're going to be getting a better rate on that. We opted into that program. We had to opt into the program, and we did.
John, okay. The energy you're speaking of is electric and gas, not oil. Oil we will still buy what we were buying. And what they're doing is they are, every one of their properties that they manage, if the board want to be part of this, they have to vote in. And then on October 1, we will know that we will have bought our energy at the largest possible quantity, but with only our share being used, so that we will get the best price. And we think that we will save money over the next 12 months, greater than we've ever saved before. And if that happens, that would be a real good thing for our shareholders and our costs of our corporation. Our maintenance charges.
So, the commercial roof leaks have been taken care of. The canopy entrances are underway. I spoke about the sidewalk bridging. The chimney we spoke about. The replacement of boiler controls.
Starting next week, I think Pepco is coming in to do this job. It's the phase 4 piece. We're moving along to finish up the VMS system, and there won't be any interruption to service. No one will know it's a problem.
And so, hot water heating?
Oh yes. In the basement of every building, there are 3 these three lobes or something, that one is for the one side of the building, one's for the other side of the building, and then one is a spare in case one fails. It seems these exchangers are not functioning properly. It's a whole system, not just these closed, but all the surrounding pieces. So Skylar recommended that we change all of them. Now, anybody who has this problem in a building notices that the hot water all of a sudden becomes hot in the shower. Anybody get that effect? This is the heat. We believe this is the heat exchanger. Skylar, our engineer, our consulting engineer, believes this is the heat exchanger. So Russell's going to try to do something that may save us money. If we can buy the heat exchangers from the company that makes them, all the parts from the company, and then hire a plumber to do the job, rather than having a plumber buy the parts, put his markup on it, and then do the job, we're going to save money that way. So this is what we're trying to do now. Everything we do is trying to save money, but do it in a way that's not penny wise, pound foolish. We're trying to get the best possible answer in every situation.
So we talked about the ventilation of the garbage, the parking registration we talked about. So as of July, there were 29 units still on the market, which was really down. Frank has been doing a great job selling apartments. By the way, the website will have apartments listed for sale. There'll be a page for apartment listings.
Is that, John, if I may ask, is that going to be a confidential page that only shareholders can see those apartments? So we'll be controlling that. We're not going to be putting all in our apartments on the...
It'll be Frank will control it. We will not put 29 apartments on that page. We don't want potential buyers when we have 29 apartments on the market. So we'll put 10 or what have you, and we'll monitor that. Hopefully we won't have 29 soon. Mm-hmm. So he's been selling them very aggressively. It's been a big help to our bottom line. We voted to explore the possibility. The world's changing, and I know I don't get a newspaper anymore. I get my Kindle, and so we're exploring the possibility of Wi-Fiing the plaza between buildings 1 and 2, so people can sit out there with their laptops and get Wi-Fi and what have you. Feel like we're on a college campus. So,
we're trying to move into the 22nd century.
Right. So that's being worked on. Committee list was published. A letter was read by
it's attached.
Doug. It's attached here.
If I may, John?
Yes.
Okay. Well, just so you know. Hi, John. I want to just tell you what happened, because maybe you don't remember. In June of 2012, Mike McMahon sent a letter to the board and resigned. Mike McMahon, on June 2012, the last day of the month, Mike McMahon sent a letter to the board and resigned. He was no longer an employee of the corporation. His expected date of finishing with the corporation was 60 days from that point. The board president decided not to keep him on in any way except to stay in his apartment available if we needed a question answered. He did no work for us. In July of that year, the board hired an attorney to investigate the general manager. And this came to you in a report at a public meeting. We spent $32,000 on an issue that was believed to be a report that would show that the general manager was a criminal. And he would be indicted and he would go to jail. That was the hope of that report. That report, the entire purpose of that report went to nil. $32,000 was a waste of money on the corporation's part because he was no longer an employee. The DA spent 2 years. They subpoenaed our records. We gave him everything. they talked to different people, they talked to different contractors, and the key to this case was always whether or not there was a criminal action that took place. And there's two ways of behavior. One is that you behave in a way that violates the rules of the co-op, but it's not criminal. And the other way is that you make a deal that's called quid pro quo. Everybody understand how quid pro quo works? Jeff, I want you to do something for me, so I'm going to give you a contract for $30,000, but you're going to give me $10,000 back. Right? That's called quid pro quo.
It's also called graft.
That's a politician. We're not doing politicians.
Okay.
So they had the district attorney, in order to pursue this case, no matter what our guy said, no matter what the attorney that we paid $32,000 said, they had to prove that there was quid pro quo. And obviously this letter says there was no quid pro quo. So everything is dropped. We've defamed the character of the general manager. We've defamed the character of the assistant general manager. And we have nothing to show for this except 2 years of putting the board through hell. And I don't know if anybody else felt this, but this was hanging over our head for 2 years.
So we changed the board since?
It's 2 consecutive years we changed the board.
So the Families Activity Committee had presented new rules. I think we talked about it. They've been instituted. Jerry and his committee worked very hard on the new rules. So they've been posted in effect. And then the bylaws.
Well, the bylaws, we're going to have to...
Yes, we're going to have to amend the bylaws.
Well, tomorrow you will get a notice in your lobbies. And on your things, it's going to announce the 2 meetings. One is the 22nd in the rec room. And on Sunday, that's the 22nd, that'll be about 2:30 in the afternoon. And then the next public meeting will be the MGCA, which is going to move their meeting to the rec room also, right,
Yes.
Andrea?
Yeah.
In anticipation of a lot of people attending. And then the third meeting will be the Monday following the board meeting, a week later. So we will have 3 public meetings, and we expect information to be given out. I'm waiting for the chair of the committee, who's a board member, to inform Donna what we need to print up and what we need to get out. So it can be given to everyone before the meeting, and there'll be copies at the meeting.
And basically, what the bylaw is going to do away with is this maximum resale price that's been very bogus for a very long time. If you get that report, I think it's in April it comes out, and
Right after the final one.
the apartment values are just not realistic anymore. They're absurd, and it's cost us a lot of money to prepare that document. And that is the main thing that's going to happen with this bylaw change. We're going to do away with the maximum resale price. It really was a big impediment for a lot of people in selling their apartment. If you had a document that said your apartment was worth $700,000 and a realtor said your apartment was really worth $500,000, it was hard to digest that. So it's giving people a lot of false sense of what their apartment was worth, and I believe that was one of the reasons that kept a lot of apartments on the market for the amount of time that it was on the market, because the prices were too high and they weren't selling. Just let me finish.
Yeah.
For what?
No, please.
And what was happening is it created a big impediment for people, and realtors were coming in and they were trying to sell the apartments, and it just created a lot of confusion. And now people, I don't think, are quite looking at that document any longer as the Bible, but it cost us a lot of money to produce, and it really serves no purpose.
I just want to call something to your attention. When we created this resale price, it was an 80% of maximum value, is what's in that book. When you look at your apartment, it's really an 80% value of open market. That's what that's supposed to be. Now, when you sell it to somebody,
they think they're buying 100% the value, but they're really buying only 80% the value. And if you're not getting that price as a seller, the buyer is giving you less money, then you're getting less than 80% of what we tell you it is. Now, in reality, every apartment that's sold here is sold at market value, 100% of value. So that sheet is so irrelevant in terms of what our apartment's worth, but what it did was it released us from the low end that we were selling them at, which was horrible. And we actually moved into a good place, but it's the worst. That document is the worst thing that anyone can look at. If you believe your apartment is worth $1.3 million, and they come and say to you, I'm only giving you $750,000 for it, and the next 4 people come in and say, I'm giving you $735,000 for it, and you keep saying, but my apartment's worth $1.3 million, it's not $1.3 million. It's what the market is. And by removing that document and going to open market, we'll know what the price of the apartment is in any year.
And the other thing that, the flip of that is, if you're going for a mortgage and the bank knows that at some point, if that flips around and your apartment is really worth 1.3 and you can only get 80% value for it, it was creating an impediment for people getting mortgages. The banks were not looking kindly on that. So everything's changed in this community, and we have to deal with that issue. So it's a complicated issue because it's not just one bylaw. It affects a few different bylaws. So the documents will be written up. There'll be plenty of time to think about it, talk about it, understand it. We have 3 town hall meetings, as you know, and hopefully we will get everyone on board. This is an important vote because it's got to be it's got to be a majority of the shareholders, not the majority of the vote, to make it pass. So it's going to be an important issue to deal with.
Right, we're going to need everyone's help to get this started. We can't have what happened the last time we did. We had a special meeting to do this. Remember, we were going out and grabbing votes at the fair. We really need the votes to come in this time. We want to get it done.
So now should we entertain some questions?
I have several questions.
One question first.
Well, one, of course, is the website. For somebody like me who doesn't have a computer, is there a list of people?
No one will be excluded. If you don't sign up and you don't have an email, you will get the paper as before.
How do you do that? By default?
Russell, what?
By default?
By default, the office will maintain a list, and those people who don't have emails, the document will be delivered to you. Russell has promised me to work that.
I have
You control it.
But, yeah, as long as you do it in your 2 minutes, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, well, the other question I have about the value of the apartment. Is the condition of the apartment in any way a deciding factor how much money you get?
It definitely is. I think people, I'm in this business, and I know that people are really look much more favorably on renovated apartments. So if your apartment is renovated, you're definitely getting a better dollar for your apartment.
If I may, when you look at that maximum resale price, it doesn't care if your apartment's been renovated or it still looks like 1957.
Yeah.
And that's crazy too. You know what I mean?
What can you do about
Well,
that?
what can you do? If it's a 1957 apartment and someone comes to look at it and they go, how much did you say this is worth? I'll give you $3. $3. You know, that's how it works. Okay?
The good news is
Yeah, but
that
then,
the value of
is,
apartments
is
is going
the
up.
person selling the apartment obligated to sell it?
No, you never are forced to sell it. But the corporation has a right to reject the purchase price if we think it's too low.
Oh, it has?
And it happened this year. Someone tried to sell their apartment for way under the value.
Relative.
And, no, it wasn't a relative. Believe me, it wasn't a relative. But they tried to sell it way under, and the corporation didn't allow it. They said, no, you can't do that. This apartment is worth a certain, it's on it. It's the place where it was located was prime location.
That will bring down the property values of the other apartments. So,
Can I ask my second question?
Well, I think a lot of people have their hands up, so maybe
Okay.
someone will ask your question. Tova, I know you have your hand
I
up.
have a question. I understand that all our vendors, contractors were investigated by the district attorney. I'm sure it cost the money, because putting together a bunch of documents cost money. I think somebody could testify cost money. Did they ask us to compensate them, number one? And number two, is it going to affect further bid that we send out, that contractor will say, chief, who wants to deal with Morningside Garden, then to have to deal with the district attorney?
I would say no and no.
That's what I would say.
I think as long as we pay our bills, and we pay our bills pretty quickly, so I think the contractors will be very happy to work here.
Marie?
In regard to the bylaw, in regard to the bylaws, I understand that there'll be various bylaws that are connected to this resale price issue, so there'll be more than one change. But are there any other issues being addressed?
It's my understanding that it's just exclusively that issue.
Thank you.
We don't want to cloud the issue. We want to do one thing. We get this clearly voted on.
I know Marion, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'd like to know, the chimneys, will there be more fees?
By the way, I'm giving you.
John, will there be more fees when they do the completion of?
No, I'm the financial director as well, and if I have to sign a check, no. No, it's not.
They have to make it right.
It's within the year. It's supposed to be warranted for a time period. So the answer to that is no. The question was whether there'd be additional fees on the chimney. And the answer to that is no.
Okay.
I just have a follow-up question on the chimney, actually. I'm wondering, some people in our building here have wondered if there's any possibility of replacing that eyesore out here back with a brick, structure at some point in the future. Is that so far away or never happened?
Well, unfortunately, we have a lot of other things we have to do, and I think that I look out at it. So I'd like to do it, but I don't think it would be a high priority at this time.
But you got to remember, the chimney is $400,000. There's another $100,000 they want out there. They're not getting, because I told Russell, we don't pay anything. They had to come to us for this money. They got to make that right, and we're still not going to give them the money. But if you tore that chimney down tomorrow, you got to bring in temporary boilers again. You got to go off the system we're using. You've got to bring that down. You got to go through the city. You've got to bring a site safety manager on. You've got to bring the scaffolding in. You've got to get the permits to do that. And remember, that was all in place. Remember, before that scaffolding came down, we could have done that brick chimney because the scaffolding had been approved. It was taken down to do this stainless steel beauty.
And just the temporary boilers cost us a tremendous amount of money.
Why couldn't they just replace the outer shell? You said that the...
Because the outer shell and the inner shell are tied together, but the outer shell, the way it looks, does not affect the inner shell, how it's connected. It's a cosmetic thing.
So they're not two separate structures?
It's not, we make the inside part and then we put the outside on. They fit together, but the inside is not damaged. There's no problem with the inside.
I know.
Yeah. And that's the flue. The inside is the flue. That's the really important part.
Sarah?
Yeah, I may be repeating Marie's question, but I just wanted to clarify in terms of the bylaw changes. Are you saying there's only one thing that's being voted on, which is basically to be open market? Is that the only
It
bylaw
basically
issue?
is the issue of the maximum resale price. It does affect several parts of the bylaw. So it's not one bylaw, but it's the one issue. And I know that the bylaws committee has been working very hard to isolate it throughout all of the bylaws. So I haven't seen the document yet, but it is just that one issue that will be focused on.
And we are going to get that, how much in advance?
As soon as we hope this week, this coming week.
It's all dictated by a bylaw, how far in advance we have to give all that information. So it will be well within, I don't know when the vote is going to be. Is it going to be January?
Well, no, we're looking at later this year, before the holiday. But there's two levels of information. There's a discussion level of information which we need for this meeting, because we have to hear what you have to say. Because the board still has not finalized this and sent it to the attorneys and told them, okay, this is what's affected, and we've heard from the shareholders and we want to go ahead this way. So we haven't done that. But we know what is affected. The bylaw committee worked on, the bylaw advice committee worked on this and looked at what pieces of our bylaws are affected, which numbers are affected, and that's what's going to come before you now. The information for the vote will be much more formal, it'll be very clear, and you will get that in just the way the bylaws prescribe a vote to take place. You'll have everything at the right time.
It's something like a 2 to 3 month process. It won't happen in a short.
I was more concerned that we have it well in advance of these meetings, so that one can think.
We believe you'll have it next week.
Okay.
We're working on it, and you'll have, we'll try as quickly as possible.
Yes.
Sorry, could you give me your name for the record? Sarah?
Sarah Hagerston.
The gentleman next
I,
to
Yes.
The boiler, you're talking about the burner and everything, why did we get such hot water out of the faucet? So hot, I can almost cook.
The water has to be delivered at 120 degrees. It's supposed to be, but that's the heat exchange. That's what we're working on. Because some places you get the hot water very hot. Some places you start out cold and you get it hot suddenly. And this is all what we're trying to fix. Because remember, this stuff has been repaired
A long time.
Well, you can't fix anything till you have an engineer tell you what they think the problem is. I and the board pushed this forward, and we asked that this be looked at because we felt it was critical. It's part of the capital plan. Whatever we're doing is capital, and we think this is going to solve the problem. If this doesn't solve the problem, our Skylar may pull out a couple of
It's
things
also
ahead.
a complicated issue in that, the buildings are 50 years old or more. So you may be getting too hot water, but she may not be getting enough hot water. And so we are trying to balance it at the same thing.
I've been involved in a lot of buildings my whole life, and I've never had that happen before. You gotta listen and work with your engineers.
Well, we are.
Sir, I think we're doing that.
But
now,
I have to tell you something. You've never had the experience of being here at Morningside, because we do everything different than the rest of the world.
why is that?
Because we're unique. We are really special. I want to tell you, we are the most special place. We composted first. We set the standard for the city.
Right.
I am addressing Mr. Larry, only because we've had this discussion before, John. Larry, as you know, 21st floor has been through hell and back over the last year. And I was just wondering what we can look forward to this winter. As most people know, we had 80, 90 degrees in our apartments after everything was supposed to be in. The insulation was in, everything was supposed to be going well. So have you been working on anything that you can assure many of us from the floor that are here tonight?
Well, here's the problem with being on the 21st floor.
You'll build a 22nd floor.
I will describe this way. The heat comes out of the basement.
I know that.
It runs to the roof.
And then it comes.
Guess who gets the most heat? Right. Then it comes down in the zigzag. As it comes down, the heat drops from whatever's here. It drops down. We barely have enough at the 5th floor.
And it never drops.
Right. So we think that the changes we're doing to the BMS will assist us in controlling this. But this is only phase 4. We still have phase 5. So we're moving along. But what has affected you the most is that you have an insulated roof for the first time.
It's made it worse?
Yes,
of course.
But it made the summer great, didn't it?
Well, yeah,
True.
this summer.
Yes, you had a good
summer.
No. This summer was a good summer,
So
wasn't it?
we went from hot, we went from cold with 6 heaters in each of our apartments.
Right.
We went from hot to then we got the heat going. Then we went from hot, then we went to cold, then we went to hot, and we stayed at hot. We never went below 80 some odd degrees during the winter months.
I know,
It was terrible.
it's going to be, and I can't guarantee that it won't be the same this year. But the good news was, you had a great spring and summer.
That's
the good news.
No, that's not good.
2 out of 4 is not bad.
We have to counter
I know that Lonnie and Tobe have questions, but before, does anyone who hasn't asked a question have a question? I know I do. I have 2 questions. One is, I'm curious, when the system of having administrative fees was put in place for fines for breaking the rule,
It has never been imposed because we don't have the tickets printed yet.
Oh, okay.
They're being printed in a foreign country under secret code. I'm joking, because I keep asking this question, where do we go to get these things printed? It's like 5 months, we still don't have it. Don't ask me.
And then speaking of months, I was curious the status of it by room, because I know it was a few months ago, Russell explained that you have to sort out who's paid the fee, what the
I couldn't answer that question because I don't have a report from the chair of the amenities committee, and she hasn't brought it up, so it might be something that we want to ask Stetter about, because Stetter is the chair of that, and she was working with Russell on that. So,
working on it.
It doesn't, it's not me. I know a lot of people, and as you know, in front of Building 1, the bike rack is filled, people are putting their bikes on the fence. So
well, we may have to change that in a dramatic
I know,
way.
But if, people should be able to use their bikes.
Well, remember, that would be a violation of the rule to chain it to the fence. If we had a ticket that we could remind them to do it, that would be a good thing.
Yeah,
But we don't have that ticket, so there's nothing to remind them with. So,
A little note
well,
from Captain
you
McDonald.
can't ask these guys to walk around with notepads, They got a lot of things to do.
Adding a bike rack.
Huh?
How about adding more place for bikes?
Well, that would be a good thing, but that becomes a grounds committee issue, and there's a whole lot of committees that want to weigh in on that.
Let me interject on that. So the bike storage was a mess. So we are working to improve that. And the first phase of it was cleaning up the bike storage and getting a handle on who was really storing their bikes in the basement. People who were paying, they weren't paying, we had bikes there that didn't belong to anyone. So that cleanup, I believe, allowed us to add additional storage in the basement.
I think we had
And
about 50
also,
spots.
we did increase the fee to store bikes. I think it was, now it's $75 a year.
No, 120.
120.
I think it's
$10
100.
a month.
So no, it's 120 a year.
Okay, so I know Tom, I'm sorry.
I'm concerned about bicycles stored in front of Building 3. It's unsightly.
In front of who?
Building 3.
Oh, Building 3 is...
Looks horrible.
The Building 3, you got the bridging out there, and you have the bikes stored there. That's going to change. As the bridging comes down, that we should be able to focus on that better and make that disappear.
I also think the outdoor bike storage will be addressed.
I beg your pardon?
I think the outdoor bike storage will be addressed. It hasn't really been addressed because we've had bridging up all over the place, but I think it will be addressed shortly.
The 3 buildings?
In all the buildings, I think.
Out there?
I think it has to be. I think we have to come up with some fair system. And I'm speaking personally, I think we have to come up with a system for people who want to park their bikes, but also for people who don't want to see unsightly bikes in front of the building. I think we have to find a solution. I think we will be able to.
Kevin?
Kevin Bradley, Building 5. 4 or 5 years ago, I brought up within Building 5 the unsightly nature of the bike rack in front of Building 5. I also mentioned, nothing was done about it, I also mentioned that anybody with a bike in front of the bike rack is getting a free ride as far as free storage goes, that's unfair to everybody else. But they said nothing's been done about it for 4 or 5 years. I'd like to see, so it was originally meant daily use.
Yes.
tie it up, leave it, but
It still is.
it's turned into a mess. And I don't know why for 5 years since I've been saying it, it's not correct.
Well, first of all, I can't even see Building 5, so I didn't even know there was a bike rack there, and I walked by it, and I haven't noticed it. But when the bridging comes down, as John said, we're going to start to look at how this works, and we don't expect bike racks to be filled all day long, because they are not permanent storage. The bike rooms are permanent storage. That is supposed to be transient. You put it there, you go upstairs, you come down, you drive the bike away. It's not the bike stays there for a month, 6 months, 2 years. The bike's got to be used. That's what that's for.
Yes, I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Oh, Jeff, Building 1.
My neighbor.
Jeff.
Yeah, Larry's neighbor. All the committees, do you, and the board, I guess, well, the committees, do you have to be a shareholder to be on the committee? Or are there committee members that don't basically live here or are not non-shareholders?
Well, I think you have to be living here to be on a committee, as far as I know. And for instance, if you're a husband and wife or a domestic partner, and one is the shareholder, I think the other person can be on a committee.
Look, I don't think I put anybody in a committee who wasn't a shareholder of all the committees. Now, it could be somebody got on that I wasn't aware of, but basically I think I've appointed only shareholders. When it's a husband and wife, a husband could be the shareholder.
No, I'm talking like just somebody completely from the outside.
No, for the answer, we're not interested in that. We don't do that. That was done 2 years ago by a previous president on a committee that he wanted to get, it had to do with department sales or something, and he brought in outsiders. I don't believe in that. I believe it has to be, we're the ones that are concerned.
But there's not a law, there's no law, a bylaw that you have to
Obviously
do.
not, because when it was done.
No?
Roland?
I have a question about Mike McMahon and the outcome of the investigation. Would the board consider making a motion to make an apology to Mike McMahon?
I believe the board will not do that.
Yeah.
For maybe many reasons. I think I prefaced this before. You can have wrongdoing that is not criminal, but you can also have wrongdoing that needs to be punished. The point is, can you punish someone who's not working here? And did you have to spend $32,000 to prove nothing? Okay?
I think everyone would like to just move on from this episode.
Okay, Danny?
The only thing, I was wondering about the commercial leases and the Duane Reade space. Do you know anything about that and how much are we losing?
Well, I can tell you that we were in negotiations with the tenant, that fell through. We were in negotiations with another possible tenant that ended up being a conflict of interest with some of our other.
Exclusivity.
We had exclusivity. We couldn't allow them to come in. So hopefully at this next board meeting we'll have a report. But it's a difficult space. It is not prime area. It's not 125th Street. So we have a very aggressive broker working on it.
Right.
I don't know that anything's happened.
We picked a good broker.
How about Rite Aid?
Well, here's the thing.
It needs the competition.
Well, so you know, that space is a very large space.
Yeah.
Duane Reade left us because they don't have a space that large anywhere in the city anymore. It's very, if you look at the one on 125th Street, it's a much smaller space, square footage wise. Now, what we would be willing to do.
We will subdivide.
Yeah, we would subdivide that space. We're just waiting for our broker to get us one who wants less, because when you see that space is large, so large gets a lower square footage rate. When you make it smaller, you get a higher square footage rate. Does that make any sense? It was bizarre to me, but you know, like if you could rent the whole block, you would pay lower for that whole block than you would if you have several stores in there. So we would be willing to subdivide if they come through. We thought we had one, but the exclusivity clause in someone else's lease will be here for too long, for much too long.
will cost us not to get this other lease in place, which would have been a very handsome fee. So we just got to, the problem is, you're talking about 123rd Street to 125th Street. We're like in a dead zone. From 123rd to 122nd, they're just opening up now a subway. They filled every slot on that block. Did anyone know that? Does anyone walk on Amsterdam?
Which one?
122nd to 123rd. They filled every slot now. A brand new subway is opening now. I went up this morning, I said, subway. You can't wait.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that whole block is food, and maybe a doctor's office, but it's basically a food block. We're here. We're going to be better. Our neighborhood is changing dramatically. It hasn't changed yet. That's the problem. So we got to get, our real estate guys are doing good things, but they got to get somebody who wants to come in here. And it doesn't have an exclusivity issue with what we have already.
Okay, so if no one else who hasn't asked a question has one, I think we have time for Lottie and Tolga have their hand up, or Tolga's done.
No, I wanted to make some comments. But
Okay, Lottie?
Well, Roland actually asked the question I wanted to ask, but I'm not quite satisfied with your answer.
I'm sorry.
Because you said that we have defamed the reputation, and there shouldn't be a recourse, an excuse, an apology, a what?
You can't.
Beside money. Money is lost, but the reputation should be...
Look, the reputation has been repaired as much as it's going to be repaired by the DA, the DA accepting the letter that says you've dropped the case. Because the DA wasn't writing that letter. Doug, who was our representative to the DA, Simmons, asked the DA to write us a letter. They said, we don't do that. But we'll accept a letter from you saying that we dropped the case. So that's the best we're going to get. And that's the best we can do, because anything else would possibly cause another problem that we don't need. And I don't mean internally. I mean it could cause a bigger problem externally. So we have to protect the corporation. We've got to do things that protect the corporation.
So you just leave it as it.
That's it.
I think it really just needs to be dropped, and I think we all understand.
It's got to be over.
Okay.
Is Mike Mann has a way of taking us to court?
I don't think so.
Anyone can do anything.
But anybody can do anything they want. As John says, you can do anything you want, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay, one last thing, Skip?
I have one question about composting, and what direction we're going in with composting. In other words, if we started back in June, and a lot of people have joined up, participated, it really is like a social movement in many ways. It's been unleashed. You see people walking around with buckets that have never done this before, and lots of people involved. I guess one of my questions is, how can we, and the board, expand it and strengthen it, improve it over coming months, and do you have any plans or outlook on how to do that, I
We're
guess?
relying on you for that.
Well,
I don't think we are anticipating a new design for that whole area. So I think at this moment, nothing further is going to be done until we get this plan from Prince George, right?
Right.
It should be soon.
Look, over half the shareholders have funds, my understanding, which is fabulous. I understand the day that the mayor came here, we had set a record in terms of the amount of compost we were producing, which was not prime season. I mean, think about it. We were entering already summer camp time, families going away. But they were very, very happy, and we're going to get reports from them. There should be one coming up from our partner in this, New York City Grow, or Grow New York City, right? Grow New York City. And they're going to give us a report on how much compost we produce and how much we're doing. But what was interesting was, I'm standing next to these guys from sanitation that go, the stuff they're producing, quality is perfect. There's no contaminations. This is a big thing. No contamination's a big thing. So we're producing pure, garbage for them to turn into compost. It's amazing.
I think what
We
we
have
have
to
to
make a big
We bring it, no, they pick up. Every weekday, sanitation comes here, they should be anytime between now and 11 o'clock. The truck comes in, they back the truck, they take the compost bin, bring it over, the truck picks it up, dumps it, they put it back.
But we have to, the tenants for the owners have to bring in something there.
Oh, yes.
Not to come, we don't put it in down the basement.
No, that would be very bad.
Right, okay, that's what.
Yeah, no, we put it in a place that, you know, you always have to think of what the cost would be to the co-op
Yeah.
to do something. To have done it any other way would have made it very difficult for us in how we were going to do it and what it was going to cost us in terms of your maintenance. So we did it the way that was going to cost us hardly anything. What does it cost us? The bins, the plastic bags, and, you know, they get washed out every morning. That's the big thing. And it's done. So we were efficient. We did the right thing.
I think that the community really supports it by the fact that we have such a high turnout to doing it. I think the board is really in favor of it. And I think as soon as this new solution comes into place, if there's a way of expanding it, I think all the better. I think
Just a quick follow-up. And somebody emailed me about a woman who's 100 years old, lives here, wants to compost blind, not able to do it. And so who steps in there?
MRHS. MRH, you should tell MRHS this person wants the assistance, and MRHS
Well,
will
we took
help.
care, I took care of it, but anyway, in other words, I'm just saying there should be like a structure in some kind of way to help people, especially seniors who are not able maybe to walk the building.
MRHS. No, but
Well, I think it's a whole discussion about how to do that, that's all I'm
We
saying.
can talk about it at a post, like the August compost meeting, and especially when the weather gets not so lovely, cold, that possibly the floor captains or something could coordinate. I mean, it would be, I don't think it's a board issue.
It's not.
I don't think it's a management issue because of Larry's pointed out the money. But I think neighbor to neighbor, that those people who go, like I go regularly, you know, I take Lottie's, I'd be happy to do it. So I think it's up to us, those of us who do go to compost and are willing to connect. But, you know, there's probably some networking that we need to do, but I think it's a neighbor thing. The floor captain thing, if they exist in your building, I mean, I think that's one way. But I think that's something, especially when it comes to the bad weather.
If I may follow up on some information, the composting is way, at the beginning, it was being, you had 200 people, I think, signed up in the committee, right, at the beginning, at the very, very beginning.
Yeah. Oh, we've got more.
No, I know that. I'm just saying at the beginning. So, Grow New York, David Hurd from Grow New York said to me, if we get 30 people, that would be incredible. I said, I'd be amazed. Well, we broke that number. We broke it. And we knew we broke it because we were weighing our composting. They had a scale here at night. This guy would come with a scale, weigh our composting, and weigh our garbage. He knew how much garbage we were throwing away versus the composting, and this is what happened. Garbage, no composting. Composting, garbage. That's the diminishment. We've actually changed the environment. We've done a really great job.
Okay, one more. Yes.
Yeah, no, posting. I hope that there's some way of addressing the fact that people who might have been away and weren't aware of it, whether the bins were distributed, and also new people who moved in, because I had someone, for instance, on my floor, who I told about it, and she had no idea.
Well, there should be a reminder, I mean.
Skip.
If you
Community relations.
And also some way of that they can get the bins.
Because I've been asked that, and I've told people, if you haven't gotten one, go to the management office.
Right.
So I think people need to know, if you didn't get one, you want one, go to the management.
If you know a new person that moved in on your floor, and you tell them, you know, we're composting, if you'd like a bucket, you just go down to the management office and they'll give you a bucket. It's a beautiful bucket. It doesn't open and it falls on the floor. It's a really nice bucket, and it costs nothing.
Larry, when people move in, they should be given a packet of information.
I think we are.
They are.
They are.
Composting.
They are. But I'm saying, look, I moved in. I got a packet of information. I put it down. I moved in because I had to live here. That was what's important. And as I went along, I started to read this stuff. But if you see a new person come in, you could say to them, I mean, it's a neighborly thing. You know, we compost here.
Do you have a bucket? You don't have one? Oh, just go down to the office, they'll give you one, it's free.
There's a page on the new website describes all the composting, and there's a link to the composter's website, but it describes what you can bring, what you can't bring, where it is, so it's on the website. Okay.
Just one more, just to quickly follow up. If the building chairs could be notified, the name and apartment number of new purchasers, it would be very helpful in being able to update them on that
That's a
they
great
need to know
idea.
about. Because people move in, they have so much on their mind, even if they have a packet, they don't read it.
Would you send that recommendation? Would you send that recommendation to to Russell? Oh, to Russell, send it to...
We used to do that years ago when there were new people in the building.
And CC
leather
Frank,
chairs.
all right? Russell and Frank? I like that, Maria, very good.
Yeah, right, that's a great idea, a welcome basket and put your composting in.
No, the welcome basket is in the composting bin.
Complete with full vegetable heap. All right, Joan, one last one and then we have to move on.
Last night, I was at the Borough President's Solid Waste Advisory Board meeting, and Ron Gonen, who is the gentleman who has, from the mayor's office, who has pushed the Department of Sanitation.
Yeah, he was here for.
He was here.
He was here.
Did a talk about how things are coming along. First of all, the first thing he mentioned was Morningside Gardens.
And that's right.
And secondly, he said that everything is going so well in Staten Island, this place. Now they're worried that they're going to run out of places to compost and also to have something called anaerobic digestion, which is another way of taking care of this. And I think that through Nick maybe, through Grow NYC, that we could get news of what's happening citywide, and I think that would encourage people. If that was put on the website that, we have so much compost now, we're looking to where to put it, whatever it is, I think that encourages people.
That could discourage people too, because they may not want to compost because there's so much. But Staten Island has a large area that's very good for composting.
Well, there's still plenty of place to put it, but the point is, I think it would be important to get the news citywide of what's happening, because I do think that would keep people feeling that they're part of a bigger
Well, one of the emails I got from Grow New
Yeah.
York, because I'm on the email list, and it mentioned the composting, and it mentioned Morningside, I passed it on to the board, I think, or to you, that
Right.
it mentioned Morningside Gardens in the newsletter.
We're the stars. We are the stars right now.
Oh, yes.
So we'll get a tax.
We're getting nothing except more, we pay more taxes.
Can I ask a question?
Only you, Bobby.
Okay. I have a question to you and Larry.
To you and Larry, she said so.
To John and John Carter, if he's here. Right. Do you have any prediction when the scaffolding will come down on building 3 and 6?
You said that.
Yes,
Yeah,
we said.
right. Well, you said
Building
no, you
3
don't.
at the end of this month.
End of this month?
End of this month. Building 6 pending the Department of Buildings and then clearing up the violations.
And 4, you're not talking about 4.
Well, we're not done. It's not done.
We're not done.
It's not
I'm just
done.
asking the question, if the pruning of trees could be included when our arborist comes for cutting the bare branches of trees which are dangerous. That's why I asked the question, if we can, and that's usually done end of September, beginning of October.
Well, I think the grounds committee address that better, but,
They can't, they're not gonna prune anything behind the bridging line. They gotta wait till the bridging's out of the way. Once that's out of the way, then everything is fair play and we can get it taken care of. So, and it's our intention that there be no unsafe conditions in Morningside. We do not want anyone hit by a branch falling off a tree. All right?
so if it comes down later, they may have to have a look at that time.
Right. We're gonna try to get everything timed out, but, you know,
John, in front of building 3 or just the back?
all of building 3 is coming
So
down.
the front as well?
Everything that surrounds building 3 will come down.
It's similar to what happened around building 2. There's a point where building 4 is still, the overhang from building 4 is in the way you can't go beyond a certain point.
Right. The scaffold, the bridging has to stay up around another building because it has to allow for half the height of the building to be protected if the building fell down.
What?
Swear to you, the rules are unbelievable. I told you, maybe you don't remember this, but in early June, I think, a young lady fell off a balcony.
Yeah.
Her railing collapsed, right? I emailed Russell and I said, they're going to come after all buildings with balconies. And I think they're coming after they don't care. This is another way of making money. This is all it is. It's hidden taxes that you're paying, but nobody knows it's a tax because it's a fine. Violations, fines, that's what they do. And it's brutal. It's brutal what they do here.
Okay, on that happy note, I want to thank John and Larry for answering our questions. Thank you very much.
Next month, you're going to have not only the bylaws committee, but you will have a financial report. We will have a 6-month review to speak to you about.
At the meeting on the 24th, the board meeting?
The board will have it. Finance committee is getting it Monday. The board will have it the week after, and I will be in front of MGCA in October 3rd, with the report about the 6-month review.
So it'll be the financial report and the bylaws?
Yeah, you're going to have a pretty busy month.
So just a reminder, October 3rd, that's what Larry's saying, it's going to be the bylaw, discussion review, and the financial review. And of course, it'll be reminded again, that one MGCA meeting will take place at the Recreation Center with the expectation there's going to be a big crowd of attending. Okay. All right, so moving on, I just have a few things to say, a follow-up to the first meeting that I led as chair, which was in June, and I want to thank everyone for their comments. Some of them were very nice and liked what I had to say. Some people were not as pleased about some of the things I said. I just say a couple of things. Someone said, thank you, Andrea, for reopening a discussion of the future of MGCA. Someone else said, how good it is to hear your new open and inclusive approach to MGCA. I applaud your efforts. Thank you. And then on the other hand, I did hear from people who didn't like the fact that I was being nice to people who were not people I agreed with in the past. And, my feeling about that is if I disagree with someone about something in the past about an issue, I probably still disagree with that person about that issue, but it doesn't, for me, preclude that there may be things that I can agree with that person, and that if I don't give a chance to learn about what that person has to say, I'll never know. So if I shut off that person is no good because I don't like X, I'll never know if there's other opportunities. Not everyone works that way. That's how I like to approach things, so I'm just saying that's what you can expect. So, in contrast to that, someone wrote to me, your statement that MGCA has no power has certainly attracted all of those who crave it. Do you really expect us to welcome those worthless people back with open arms? And then goes on to say, my only regret was allowing you to volunteer for the job. Perhaps your bylaws committee will have the foresight to my only regret was allowing you to volunteer for the job, meaning chair. perhaps your bylaws committee will have the foresight to include a provision to remove a chair from office. I'll raise my hand. So unfortunately, I think this is the minority, but I think unfortunately for this community, I think that's what causes the disharmony. But that's not, I mean, you know, I'm just one vote when everyone votes on things, but that's my opinion, is not to close off, so. That's one thing, and the other announcement is I'd like to set Community Relations Committee. I think the thanks are owed to Ben Lyman, who took the role of steering the Community Relations Committee over the past year. He didn't want to be chair, but I think, from what I understand, he did a great job about steering it. And I asked Skip Delano if he would be chair, and he has accepted to be chair, because I think Skip, who's been a committee member, based on how he motivated people with the composting, and I think he'd be great. He motivated people for the community relations. And as Skip said, you know, that could be something that the committee takes on in terms of coordinating the partnership for compost relay races or something. So, Skip could probably tell us more. I don't know if we'll have time tonight, but I know the next meeting is Tuesday, next week, Tuesday, September 17th. That's the next community relations committee meeting. And the other MGCA committee, so to speak, is the Employees Holiday Fund. And Sherry Kane and Angela Schramm have been co-chairs for 2 years, and they will continue. This will be the third year, and the bylaws allow for a tenure of 3 years. They will do it again this year, and I think many of the committee members will be participating again. I know Marion said she would, and I invited someone else. I thought she'd be good for the committee, and she's going to join the committee. And Joanne Kapner is really great in numbers and all. So she spoke to Sherry this past week, and she's going to join the committee. And for anyone who doesn't know about the committee, the Employee Gift Fund, that's when shareholders are encouraged to make a donation of any amount they can comfortably give that goes into a big pool that is then distributed to Morningside employees. And how it's divided up, the longer someone's been an employee, the larger their portion of the pool. But everyone gets something. And what Sherry said is the past couple of years, I think she reported this at the meeting, it's only about a third of the shareholders, although people, when they give, tend to be generous. It's only a third of the shareholders who have been contributing. So anything we can do to try to encourage our fellow neighbors to give even a small amount. And, you know, there'll be flyers and all, and as I said to Sherry, and then there'll be the website. So we could use that to promote it, but that, you know, I'm sure they'll start to really be active next month, and I'm sure we'll hear more about it.
So it's called the Employee Gift Fund Committee?
I'm sorry.
The name of this committee is the Employee Gift Fund Committee?
Well, it's actually a bylaws, it's the employees. Actually, the MGCA bylaws calls it Christmas holiday, but I'm calling it. Well, you know, let's face it.
I shouldn't argue.
Well, when the bylaws, which are sorely in need of an update, get updated. And to that point, I don't think we have even a chance to discuss that until the November meeting, given what's on the agenda for October. But what I plan to do is, for anyone who I have an email address for, anyone who is in attendance today who hasn't signed the sign-in sheet, and if you haven't given me your email, you know that you did if you heard from me by email, feel free to give me your email. I send out messages where everyone's name is blind copy, so I'm not sharing your email address with all your neighbors. But this is a way to get information by email, and that would be one thing I want to do is send out the bylaws that the MGCA is following now, the 1997 model. And then a few years ago, 2010, if I recall, there were new bylaws proposed, but they didn't get accepted. And I'd like to send that along so people, I think, the idea is to just get an idea. I think that the newer version is a good model to say, okay, how further can this be updated? But, you know, maybe that can happen over the next few months. Something can get started about that. So That's it for me. The next thing is, and again, I had emailed, for those who are delegates who can vote on the minutes, I had emailed the minutes in advance, so people had a chance to look at it, and I hadn't heard back from the I sent it initially after the meeting and again a week or two ago, and I haven't heard any comments. So I'm going to call out the names of people who are eligible to vote. Tell me if you accept them. Marie Wilson.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I read it, but.
Yeah. Bernie.
Yes.
Edith. Okay, John Mercer.
Yes.
Lottie Strauss. Susan St. John's Parson. Skip Delano. Danny Freeman.
Freeman?
Yes, Danny.
Me.
You accept the minutes?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Audrey Muscat. Linda Zedner. Marie Ledoux.
Except
Louis Papier is not here. Barbara Williams Henry.
Yes.
Okay, the alternates that night were Tolga Frankus.
Yes.
Joanne Winston's not here. Layla Elder,
Yes.
Eric's not here, Ann Bolden's not here, and Joyce Quinn is not here. So, okay, the minutes for June 6th have been accepted, and anyone who I have an email for, I will email the minutes that have been approved for June 6th. So next on the agenda, does any building have a building report? Building 1?
Nothing at this time.
Building 2, which actually doesn't have a chair right now, but Lottie or a delegate or Layla, anything to say about building 2? 3, that's you, Skip.
Yeah, I found it very disturbing that we don't have reports of other buildings. I mean, it's a reflection of kind of one of the problems at MGCA, we don't have activity in the building. And I'll give you, like in our building, Building 3, we had a building meeting on the 23rd, we were very active, 20 or 30 people came out, had a good discussion of some of the problems in the building. And like I said, my wife and I are both co-chairs. We put out 2 newsletters, one in May, one in June. We plan on having a newsletter every month, try to alert people to things in the building itself. We did the June 22nd picnic solstice party in the Thurgood Marshall room here, attended by 60 people or so, something like that. It was a great time, had by all. We have a building meeting coming out in September, actually with the grounds committee, because we're talking about the scaffolding come down. We're going to meet with the grounds committee and talk about the landscaping that's being proposed, or at least we'll have some input from people who live here, with the horticulturalist who's actually going to design and use our ideas to come up with a plan. So that's kind of what we're doing. And again, I find it upsetting that more activity is not going on at other buildings. There's something in terms of what we need to do with MGCA. It's just clearly an issue we need to grapple with and help each other in some kind of way. Where the buildings are not active, look for ways we can help each other so that all buildings have more activity in them. Not say like ours. We have building chairs on all our floors and so on, and I think we should have more opportunity to talk about it here at the MGCA.
5. Building 5 will have an autumn get-together on the 6th of October, at which time we'll meet our new members and bring up any issues that people have.
Barbara, do you have something for Building 6? See, that's an example. Building 6 tried to have an election, and they don't even have enough people volunteer to be candidates. I don't know how you incentivize people if they don't want to participate. It's a real challenge. And my feeling is newer shareholders that are coming are less inclined to be an active part. I think people want a place to live, they pay the maintenance, they don't have to get, putting bulbs in the ground, they pay maintenance, and unfortunately, I think that's the new state of things, and, I don't know what we can do, but that's what did I miss one?
Missed one.
No, you did miss one. Oh, I'm sorry.
I guess I'm right here. We haven't had any activity, but we're all very active.
That's great. That's great.
I should probably add to tell you that in the grounds committee, we heard that the 2 trees which were sent by my name and Glenn Baker's name, we collected more money than we needed, and this money is hopefully used to enhance the building 2 entrance, because it isn't a possibility for the chair of the grants committee to repay in dollar and cents what the debt, the surplus. So that's, I was asked how to use the money, and I was in contact with several of the donors who all agreed that we could use the money for the enhancement of building, the entrance of building 2. So that I should add.
Did I miss building 7? Okay, so Susan Miller had asked me if she could spend a few minutes talking about an idea that came up that other people, I don't know if workshop is the right word. It's not a workshop.
So I just wanted to say that there are a group of people that have been talking about how wonderful it was when there was the ice cream social, and how wonderful people from across the aisles came together. It's not a political, it just, people come together and it really starts to engender some community feeling. And I think hearing about what's going on with buildings, this is all part of how do we make people feel like they're part of the community and not just part of the fiduciary, economic structure. And so some of us have thought about the idea of trying to put together sort of a coffee house, but something where people who live here have the opportunity, whether they're artists or whether they're musicians or whether they're writers or actors, where several times a year, maybe do a pilot program where we would be able to have an evening where people who live here can present their work to each other. And, I just wanted to make sure that it's something, that the community supports. And I was curious, I know you sort of answered the email that without my even asking, I think about the fee structure, because there was concern about how fees are charged or not charged. Like, who gets to use rooms
Well, let
and
me
who
ask
doesn't
John,
get
let
to
me
use
confirm
rooms.
with John as a board member, what I conveyed to Susan, and I just want to correct and make sure that I said this correct, I thought, my understanding is that if an event, let's say a meeting, is open to the communities, there wouldn't be a fee. In other words, if you're having a private party, you have a guest list, then you pay a rental fee for the room. But if it was an activity that was open to the whole community, would it be?
For the community,
For the community room?
I think that would be correct. I think it's only private.
That's what I thought, so I did convey that. I wanted to make sure that it didn't, what I conveyed to Susan was correct.
It's a private event or an event that's open to the community, but where the teacher's charging for it, then there's a fee for the
But this would not be.
But if it's open to the community and it's free to the community, yes.
Right. But I think that's the intent of this.
But if someone's having like a birthday party and they're going to open it to the community, I don't think
No,
that would be
no, I mean-
the type of thing we're talking about.
What about if, like Mornings Like Arms Players asked for suggested donations, and if that went towards, providing drinks and cookies or whatever, would that be acceptable, or is that problematic?
The board would be favorable.
So I don't know, when they had their cabaret or their fundraiser, which people paid a ticket price for, it was meant as a benefit for the Morningside players.
I think the players are exempt from those charges anyway.
Is that how it works?
I think so.
Because they're a nonprofit, right? Do they have nonprofit?
Yes,
Well,
they do.
it's not that they're a nonprofit, but I think when we're talking about events, we should just, the players are sort of in a separate category
Okay.
right now, so they're not a good comparison group to use.
But what Susan is describing, Jetta, would that, in your opinion, you're the chair of the amenities, do you think that would be something that a room charge would not be necessary?
You mean something like what MRHS did, an ice cream social, but run by a different group and using one of the rooms and inviting the community to it, and maybe artists showing their work? I mean, I'm not the authority, right? I just chair an amenities committee that votes on a policy that then the board then can endorse or not. I mean, based on the policy we already endorsed and that the board then endorsed, I think that would qualify as one of the times when, the hourly rate is not imposed.
Very good. Yeah.
And so I want to say also that at some point we'll probably maybe have some flyers or something, but if you know of somebody who you think would love to have an opportunity to present what they do, who lives here, then I would be willing to, I'd be glad to get emails or whatever.
What's your name?
Susan Miller, 75.
The way that it was presented is one of the things that I read. It was not at all clear that this kind of thing would be, they would not charge for that. And I wish that, maybe it could be rephrased again, because it sounded like the only committees that didn't need to pay were MGCA and the board committees and so on and so forth.
The issue was we had classes, things of that nature, where people were charging and they...
Yeah, no, I know about that, but it wasn't, the question was committee of stockholders who had a meeting that was, open to everybody, and it seemed to say just these committees.
I don't think,
could do
no.
it.
I did the description, I have to check myself with the website,
Yeah.
and it had to do with because it's the page where you can make a referring to making a room reservation. And I think I did it pretty clearly, because I made a point of if you're paid, if a fee is involved, then you have to make sure the money gets to the office, but we could check that, and if it's, like John said, in terms of the website, it's a first run, and we'll see, we'll get some feedback, but I think I made it clear as to, but we'll take another look at it.
I would say that something like this would not be charged.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yes.
I have something kind of relates to it. Again, I don't let the cat out of the bag, as they say here, but I'm on the grounds committee, and one thing we wanted to try to do, and again, we've got to clear the board and stuff like that, is, many people have been downtown throughout the city. You see containers, some of the containers we have over there between building 1 and 2. What we'd like to do is bring in small tables and little chairs to go around, just like they do around much of the city, so that people can come out in front of building 2 or 1 and actually use those spaces, besides just the benches, to have more space for people to be outside together, talk, exchange, relax, and so on. So that's something we, want to raise with the board. And
Gee, you know something? Great minds think alike. Because John Muscarello actually came up with that idea of having umbrellas and tables and chairs out there.
we don't have umbrellas, but we...
No, but umbrellas are important because when the sun hits. And if you're Wi-Fi, think about it. If we Wi-Fi the area and you have that, that's a perfect combination. And that's a great use for that large space. Because I don't know if you're aware, but Domingo Gonzalez is our designer for our exterior lighting. And he told us in his presentation that we have outdoor living room space. And the plaza is considered an outdoor living room space. And it has to be lit in a way that makes people feel comfortable, they want to come out and be part of the community. The space between Building 6 and Building 1 on Linden Lane is a outdoor living room space. This big space. So that's a great idea, but it's been thought of. We just can't do anything until we see how this is all
We
going
use the tables and chairs, so if you're ready to do it, we're ready to put them out there.
Well, you got to get the right tables, the right chairs.
Well, that's what she's already bought some, so you'll really like to see how it works. So.
I'm sorry, about the outdoor living space. If you were going to provide chairs or benches, I would please ask you to make them high enough so that seniors like me will be able to
How about like me?
down. Because right now, I sit on the benches all the time.
And you can't get up.
And have been since I've been here. Now that I have arthritis, it is very difficult to get up. And I would have asked you about raising the benches, and you said that
I told you the problem was that they had sunk and they embedded in concrete, which doesn't help.
If they put anything else out here, because if anybody stays here for any length of time, if you're lucky, you will get old.
It's like a comfort height
toilet bowl, right? It's easy to get off a comfort height than it is off the other ones that they,
And I
right?
have one of those.
And I do too. That's why I brought it up.
So if this is in the future, please keep this in good place. Okay, now, Detta has something that should, we have some time, and Detta said she had some news she wanted to share with us.
You have that commitment, my neighbor all the time next door, sitting on your toilet.
Hi, everybody. Hi. So I go to all these community board meetings in East Harlem, Central Harlem, West Harlem. Now Skip goes to Sonnet Beach. So I get a lot of news from those. Some of it is not so relevant to us because it's not so close. Like they want to create an extra. They want to block off one block of one street and make a park of about like 30 blocks north of us and about 10 blocks south of us. They want to make a vacant lot into a community garden. So these things are always in the works. Something though that came up that I feel is very relevant to us and which I wanted to tell the community about a little bit is that, well, I told this community about the possibility of 125th Street being redone with a bus lane and tons of other improvements and enhancements. And unfortunately, that plan got cut in half, and then it got dropped entirely. Yeah, that's really, it's a shame because there was a very small minority of people who were against it, but they were very vocal, and they had positions of some recognition in the community. And then a lot of people like us, like our co-op, really only found out about it very late in the game. And we didn't get a petition going or a letter writing campaign. And, unfortunately, that had been a plan, that was well researched, and it's a shame. But I mean, maybe we have a new city council. We have a new representative for this neighborhood.
Who's the guy, by the way?
Mark Levine. Right, Mark Levine, because Robert Jackson served 3 terms, 12 years. He was term limited out. The new term limit for the new incoming class is 8 years. They cannot do the 3rd term. But
They're saying tonight.
well, unless they vote themselves the 3rd term again, like before.
Well, and then the speaker of the council will not get elected mayor when it's their turn to get elected mayor.
Right. So we have Mark Levine. He was a chair of the transportation committee on his local community board, so he is more familiar than most politicians with mass transit and street safety issues. So maybe the plan will be revived. But there's another plan now, which again, it's being presented to the community, and I'm just hoping that it won't get rejected this time. So this is on Morningside Avenue. So this is the east side of Morningside Park. So we're
At the bottom of the park. It's at the bottom of the park.
Well, yes, the lower side of the park. What is that? The same as Central Park West? So it's the same.
No, it's Morningside.
Okay, so it would be like 9th Avenue, right? If it had it.
Yeah, Morningside Avenue. It's really Morningside Drive.
No. It's along Morningside Park.
All right. So you have, Morningside Drive is the west side, the higher. This is Morningside Avenue. Yes. So this is Morningside Avenue.
On the other side.
Okay. Anyway, it would be somewhat like 9th Avenue if it had a number, right? Okay. So this avenue south of 116th Street is narrow. It's only, I think, 40 feet wide. And north of 126th, it's narrow. It's only 38 feet wide. But from 116th to 126th, it widens and it's 60 feet wide. And this creates a very bad condition because whenever a road opens up like that, the lanes are wider, there's an extra lane,
and people go fast. There's not enough crosswalks into the park. There's 2 schools along there. They don't have any sort of special, crossing, you know. So the idea is to redo those 10 blocks. And
To narrow them?
yeah, what they want to do right now, it's actually 6 lanes. It's a parking lane, 2 travel lanes the other way, and a parking lane. And the volume of cars using that street is low, so they don't actually need the 2 lanes in each direction. Even with 1 lane in each direction, there would be only 10 cars per light cycle at the most, at the peak time, and 10 cars can always make it through a single light cycle. So you don't need these 2 lanes, and when you have 2 lanes, you've got a lot of lane changing.
What street was that?
This is
Morningside Avenue.
No, what?
116 to 126.
That's where it's the widest.
That's where it's 60 feet wide, instead of 38 or 40 feet wide.
There is no lights there, right?
There is
a light. I think there's 2 lights.
There's some lights, but there's a lot of these T intersections. Well, they're all T intersections because it's the park. Well, except, so there's few lights. There's a lot of places where there's not even a stop sign. There's not even a yield sign. There's not even a painted crosswalk. So what they want to do is organize it better. They're going to make a very wide parking lane on each side of the street. So that really, and it's going to be wide enough that if people need to double park, they can double park in the parking lanes. They're out of the way of the moving traffic. So it's like, it actually, since that illegal behavior goes on, this allows a safe way to do it. And a way that doesn't make people have to change lanes and go around. And then you're going to have a 1 moving lane in each direction, and then what you're going to have is a wide median painted on the ground that's going to become a left turn bay wherever needed. You've seen those, you know. So, and then at where there are 2 schools, at 120th and at 123rd, and where there's a heavily used park entrance at 118th, they're going to also, it's not just going to be a painted median. They're going to give you one of those pedestrian refuge islands right in the center on the median. Wow. Okay, so this is really good. Then the other place, does everybody know Hancock Triangle? Or you don't know it by name, but you're walking on 125th, and you got to go, you want to stay on 125th, you don't want to go towards the gas station.
Yeah.
You got to go to that triangle. There's no crosswalk to get onto that triangle. They're going to put a light and a crosswalk there.
That's good.
Like, yeah, so we've needed that forever. And then at a few other intersections, they're going to be, well, actually, I think at 126, they're going to, you've probably also seen this too, where they do a curb extension, so that the distance you have to cross the street is shorter. You know, so it's not, they're not going to do it with concrete, but have you seen it where they do the tan paint? They put up those flexible delineators. So they're going to do that at 126.
And what?
Well, this is still Morningside Avenue. They're going to do it at 125th and 126th, where they feel the crossing, those crosswalks are not lined up, because it's like the streets are on an angle, so they want to square it off. But that means painting a bulb out around the curb, basically giving pedestrians more space. 126 and what avenue? It's all Morningside. This is 10 blocks of Morningside.
Does Morningside Avenue go to 126th Street?
Yes. It goes up further, but it becomes narrow again.
How far does
Doesn't it become convent?
City College.
Become convent?
Yeah, exactly right.
Does that turn into St. Nicholas, or does it turn into
Convent Avenue.
Convent Avenue is a separate.
Where does St. Nicholas stop?
So next time I'll come with a map. Okay, it's a proposal or a done deal. Unfortunately, it's
some proposals. This area straddles Central Harlem Community Board, Community Board 10, and our Community Board 9. More of it is in Community Board 9. Ideally, the Department of Transportation likes to get a resolution in favor from these two community boards. The Transportation Committee chair of both those two community boards, because they sort of function like Morningside does. They've got the committees, then they've got their full board, and those two chairs are not supportive, but
Of what?
of street improvements.
Really? Neither one.
No, but there are other members, I think, of Community Board 9 who are supportive and who are going to bring it to the full board a week from today. If that happens, what is needed is for members of the public to go to that meeting and sign in and just go up. There's a public session right at the start of the meeting, and you're given 2 minutes. You can take less. But it's good if members of the public come and say, hey, I heard about this and I need this, or I would feel safer crossing this street with this change, or I feel safer traveling on this street with this change. So I guess now the logistics of I guess I can put up flyers everywhere in the building lobbies notifying people at that meeting it's going to have that vote. But if it's going to have that vote, it would be really helpful if people come and this is your community board, So, and the public has a right to speak. You have to get there in the beginning of the meeting and sign in, and then all the public officials will speak, so you can be quite informed, because you'll hear every single elected official have their aide there, give a little speech. But then it's your turn, and then the full board will go on with all their business.
When is the meeting?
It's a week from today. Yeah. What do you think should take
If you're
place?
going to post something, may I suggest that you post a petition form? There are lots of people who will be sympathetic to this idea who will not attend the meeting. And we can get them back to you through the building organization,
Yeah, I mean-
or you can pick them up later.
Andrea?
You'll post it yourself.
Community relations.
A petition would be signed by a lot of people.
I mean, that is where I need some help, because I'm someone who's informed, but I'm not a community organizer. So the process of informing people, of keeping track of people who.
If I may.
Sure. I mean,
Skip, am I saying something out of school? What can I say?
No, I don't think so.
Skip is the chair of the Community Relations Committee. It behooves the Community Relations Committee to inform and say the shareholders want this for us. I mean, it's our area. So if they go and they can get people out, that would be beneficial to everybody.
Right. It's just that their meeting's Tuesday. This is.
No, we are meeting.
Your meeting is Tuesday.
Our meeting is
So I'm just saying, that doesn't leave them much time to sort of do much in the community. This event is a week from today, so that's why I came here,
Well,
sort of-
Skip's
Skip's
an opportunity to speak to, right? In other words, this is not going to happen for months, or it's going to take a period of time
What?
before they decide to do this. They're not voting on this immediately.
No. There's a very good possibility they're going to have a resolution in front of the board a week from today at the board's monthly meeting. And then it will be voted. So, no, the implementation might not be for a couple months after that, but this is how it works. The DOT needs to know.
Right.
So is there some way to email people that
Actually, it should be the residents of Morningside Garden when we speak outside this community, because nobody cares you're a shareholder, that you're a resident. They speak for the residents.
Well, and each resident is really speaking for themselves.
No, but I'm saying if CRC goes and Skip speaks, I'm speaking on behalf of Morningside Heights Housing Morningside Gardens residents.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, even one person speaking there to them, even if that person says I represent.
Well, he's going to bring Liz. Liz will speak.
I'm just saying,
Andrew, you'll be there, I'm
I've been
sure.
to these meetings for several years now, and even if you say you represent a big group, what helps is actually person after person after person actually coming.
But yes, if you know,
Where is it held?
I'll have to post all that. They have several different locations that they use for their main meeting. I'm not 100% sure which it is, but you know. But cool, I'll put it up later like that. I don't know if I should be taking emails right now from people who are interested, or if there's already a list.
I'll take a petition around the building 5.
I can't hear. What happened? Somebody said something.
Okay, so
Well, why don't you, the best way to do it right now is to fly on, to be included by the elevator in each building. I'd be happy to do it in my building. What you can do the flyer in a way they do the signature on the bottom, that people can sign and then we collect them and give them to you. I cannot be there because it's holiday.
Right. Oh, okay, you mean just post
Them, yeah, but if you get it.
post petitions that people can just sign and that will.
Yeah, we can put it on the, and right now they're empty. It's a good time.
I think that one thing that really affects Morningside Gardens is that this is where you cross the street to go to the A, B, or C train. And there's nothing to stop the traffic. You take your life in your hand when you try to cross the street.
I know.
So I think that that's a good point for Morningside Gardens people to be making in defense of this plan.
Yeah, I think it is. That's a pedestrian safety hazard right now.
You're talking about 124th Street and Morningside Avenue?
I think she's talking about getting onto that triangle.
When you go down that path in Grand.
Right, and that leads you to 124th Street and Morningside. That's when you skip. Okay, that's what I
The
thought.
gas station.
Right, the gas station. You're walking through the gas station.
Yeah.
Do you have a map of the area that you could put on top of the flyer?
I could make one, sure, yeah.
If you can reduce it and have on half a page the maps, and then basically the information like 3 lines, and then on the bottom room for signature.
But actually, Joan brings up a really good thing. This is a really good start. If we could get this in, that would be a good start. But that intersection that you mentioned is, I don't know if it's getting special treatment, and it needs it. But the thing is, this is a good start, and then once you have something successful like this, the community can then go to the DOT again and say, oh, well, we also need this curb extension or this crosswalk here.
But if you only need to look at one lane going one way and one the other way instead of 2 lanes each way, it's much easier to cross that street. But now you really take your life in your hand and you should, really go down to 123rd Street. But who wants to do that? So you don't.
No, but you're right. It will be just 1 lane in each direction. So you're right. It will be much easier.
But Debra is right that at the community board, when an issue comes up that people care a lot about, the way they show they care is that tons of people show up. And maybe they're all saying the same thing, but they all show up, and then you notice when the issue is over, they all leave, and all of a sudden,
That's true. All right, it's 9:35, so I think it's time for, unless you have something more to say.
No, I'm available afterwards. I don't want to hold a meeting.
So, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, October 3rd, so the next meeting, recreation center.
Are you Bill? We have like a community relations meeting on Tuesday.
Well, I was able to
It'd be something great if you could kind of bring put input from the community board. I'm going with tomorrow.
because I was just saying, we had thought about it. But she's right about the height of the chairs. Whatever we do, ladies and gentlemen, whatever we do, the size of the chair, really, for senior person, it shouldn't be standing, it's gotta be like, because you can't get it. All right, I spoke to Joe. Well, we can just,